Okay, call to order right at 4:30. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The review and approval of minutes can be looked at on the website. And I'm going to okay. So our first step is our old business, which is our manual update. And these are the policies and regulations up for elimination this month. They start with section B. I've done a lot of work on section B that will be actually probably coming up more in September. But as far as eliminating, there was a lot of duplication or piecemealing where there was one policy on the regular committee meetings, one on the special committee meeting. So I consolidated them into one policy on committee meetings with a section on regular, a section on special, instead of having all these separate policies, you know, it was unnecessary. So these policies we're eliminating because they're going to be consolidated into a single policy. BDDH is a duplicate policy of KD, which was recently updated, the public participation at school committee meetings, that was recently updated. Policy, there was policy development, policy preliminary development, adoption, those were all, you know, parts of writing policy. So there'll be one policy on policy. So
That's good.
it's going to be consolidating to one policy. Committee review of regulations, we're no longer writing regulations, so there's no need for that. Again, policy dissemination, policy review and evaluation, it's all part of the one new policy on policy. And committee member pension is going to be merged with policy BHD. Under I, there was one other policy under I we needed to eliminate, which is bring your own device. We don't do that anymore, so there's no need for that policy. Under J, we had JB, which was originally up for tonight, but when Andrew reviewed the policies for tonight, he said, JB, we don't need that because we have our Title IX policy, which encompasses all of JB, so we don't need JB at all. And so we need to eliminate that.
We also have all these changes to Title IX, like there's a ton of changes coming up to Title
Right.
IX for August, so we'll have to tweak all
To
that.
tweak all that anyway. JECA, admission of resident students, is no longer needed. And hazing, we merged with policy JFCN, which is up later today. And then the rest are all regulations from all of the different sections that were still on the books. Because we're no longer using regulations. They're basically the roadmap of how we are doing things. And so they change over time. And so instead of having something on the books that have to be constantly updated and brought back to the school committee, which you don't vote on, it's just, you're just made aware of. There's no reason to keep flooding the book with these regulations that change. And it's just really the procedures. They're really procedures of how we do business around the policies. how the procedures for doing those policies, for enacting those policies. So we're going to eliminate all these regulations and, as we need procedures, they're just, they're in the handbooks, they're in, they're posted wherever they need to be, but not as part of the policy manual. Because we don't want to get them confused with policy, because they're not. And so that's it for the eliminations for this month.
I have a question on the parental involvement. What was that regulation about? Since we're getting rid of it.
Well, it was again, we have a policy on parent and family engagement. So I'd have to look up, that would be KB,
Do they overlap?
probably. Sometimes they're the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're actually the same as the policy. They say the same thing.
There was a time when we had school committee policies and superintendent regulations, and they were, like we've been discovering, basically the same thing, just in two different places. And this process that we've been going through this year actually started a couple administrations ago.
And this is from 2010, and it's having to do things that no longer exist.
Yeah.
And that's why, it's a procedure of notifying parents of if your school, the Title I school doesn't meet their goals. And we don't do that way anymore.
Is that
so
before IEPs?
Hmm?
Is that before IEPs? No, it was at IEPs.
No, but some of these might predate widespread use of email, for example,
So,
where communicate and like alerting the television or the radio stations for school closings, that shows up in that's was certain radio stations, but now the superintendent just alerts the Rhode Island Broadcaster Association, and it shows up in multiple places, and it goes on our website. So some of this stuff predates a district website.
And just sending home emails as opposed to a flyer or a letter home to a parent. It's just all email.
so if there's no other questions on that, we can start to move on to our new business. And the first is policy IGDB. Student publications. The original policy did not say very much, and when I looked at language that was being used universally, it was much more detailed, talking about what constitutes language or communication that would be disapproved, or not be approved for publication, that type of thing. So that was added in. So things like publications will comply with the rules for responsible journalism. School district administrators may only disapprove part or all of a school-sponsored publication if the content or activity is libelous or scandalous, constitutes unwarranted invasion of privacy. That was the language, which, is legalese that I was seeing consistently in policies across the states. So I added that in there. Contains false statements, that type of thing, which made sense. And then, again, very much legal language, expressions of personal opinion must be clearly identified as such and bear the name of the author. Opportunities for expressions of differing from those of student publishers must be provided. Student newspapers or publications which are paid for by the district or produced under the direction of a teacher are not considered a public forum. In such cases, superintendent designee reserves the right to edit or delete such student speech that it feels is inconsistent with the district's basic educational mission. And then students have the right to distribute literature on school grounds, provided the distribution does not interfere or disrupt the educational process, and no literature may be distributed unless a copy is submitted in advance to the superintendent of schools.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a separate policy for digital media publication for students?
Digital media publication. I don't believe so.
Just food for thought.
Mhm.
But since everything's going that way,
Tollgate's newspaper is currently just digital.
wouldn't maybe the language want to be changed, especially when you're talking about that last paragraph there, when you're saying distribution? If it's gonna include digital media,
So
I feel like
say
you need to clarify that,
Including digital. So
something
I'm
like
saying
that.
students have right to distribute literature, including digital.
Yeah, that's,
Mhm.
yeah.
And you should too,
Digital
in the
platform or whatever.
beginning of the policy in the second paragraph, where you specifically mentioned, for example, annual yearbooks and school newspapers, I feel like you probably want to put
Yes.
something about digital media right there too.
Mhm.
Yeah, school news, whether,
Newspaper.
whether in print or digital.
Yes.
I have a question on the second page, 2 of 2, in regards to school newspapers. Are they then going to have to go to the superintendent's office for approval?
I'm right on the page.
It says may. It doesn't say that it has to, it just says may be required.
I think
Um,
if you're something.
Darlene, the second to last sentence underlined, no literature may be distributed unless a copy is submitted in advance to the superintendent.
Or designee.
Well, does the superintendent, to Adam's point, I think, does the superintendent have to approve every issue of every?
Unless a copy is submitted to the principal.
I think if the principal has concerns,
Then
yeah.
I mean, I did the Tollgate newspaper for a number of years, and in its print form. And I never submitted it for approval. And we had a great April Fool's issue every year with all sorts of hijinks, and that certainly contained false statements about the pool on B4 and stuff like that. Dunkin' Donuts gonna be, do you remember
that?
some?
I remember Dunkin'. I remember Dunkin' Donuts. Got
Dunkin'
my hopes
Donuts
up high.
in the cafeteria and all that.
Is it really?
So I changed that to the principal, that's fine.
Another thing is that whoever's overseeing, like especially yearbook, where there's a lot of pictures, I think that person should be carefully reviewing all the pictures that are in there. We're having a problem this year of a picture that's a little risque, that the parents are upset. It's not too bad, but it's just a little
Which
risque.
school?
So
I looked at
I
the
think
Tollgate one, I didn't
if we
see
have it in the
it.
policy, then maybe the person overseeing yearbooks and newspapers will make sure they check. Yearbooks have so many pictures in it.
We get a second
I did
opinion.
I did the yearbook at Whitman too, and it was all, where you had to crop each photo and stick a sticker on the back of the photo for the page and the placement and put them all in a
Yeah.
bag
I'll
by page.
rather than
It's all
look for it
digital
right
now.
here.
So
I'm
much
gonna
easier.
make a note on tomorrow morning. I'll add language
Okay,
in there about
Yeah.
reviewing pictures
All right.
for the yearbook.
it never ends.
Yeah, well, that's why, that's why I'm glad we always have this meeting.
No, it's good. Yeah.
To make it better. All right, anything else on this one?
Should the pictures just, I understand the point with yearbooks, but we have pictures in our school newspapers and everything else, so it should be, regardless of the publication, the pictures should be looked at.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Because you also have to be
Things on
careful,
public.
some parent hasn't requested that their child's photo not be used.
Yeah.
Okay,
We do have kids who, you're not allowed to photograph, so you gotta be careful.
Like in today's assembly, 70 students who couldn't be photographed had to sit the back left, so the media knew they couldn't take
Oh.
pictures.
all right, IGDF, student fundraising activities. Again, this is language that I found universally, that was more up to date, prohibiting door-to-door sales, limiting the use of instructional time, that shouldn't apply to book fairs, that book fairs are okay to have during instructional time. Food or beverages sold are subject to the smart snack guidelines, established by federal regulation, and that
So
type of thing.
No bake sales,
No bake
Right.
sales.
selling
Correct.
brownies, that's so sad.
Charitable gaming or gambling is prohibited.
Bake
As a
sales are still
fundraiser.
being done.
Yes, they are.
So why do we have to why does that have to be part of the,
It's been part of it for years. Nobody follows it though. It's always been, for at least the last 5 years, I would say it.
is there
At
something
least.
forcing us in there? Like, is it part of something else?
Healthy wellness.
That's
Yeah.
that's stopping us from giving crap food. I mean, if you're doing a bake sale and a car wash, I mean, is it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but a
That's-
bake
that's on
sale,
the
if you-
weekend.
Yeah.
That's not on campus.
Yeah.
And I think that's different than
If you're doing a
what
big
this is
sale
saying
at
at
school.
I think
school.
sometimes the PTO though will have events.
Hmm.
And when they do, they will sell chips, cookies, things like that nature. It really.
Sometimes they have them available. Well, at the elementary school, anyway, they have them available, but I don't know if they
They did
sell
sell them
them,
at the
do
last
they?
couple events I went to.
Really?
My drama club, I sell candy and chips
Yeah,
and
they do.
whatnot.
They do. And they even do it at sporting events.
So,
And
and
I
I,
Oh, yeah.
sell my leftovers during the school day.
and I think, one elementary school got stopped from selling during a non-school event too, but it was at the school, and I was like, that doesn't make sense in my head.
Mm,
Because
Some-
Aramont,
Probably.
Yeah,
Because it
some,
was-
that
Because it was
too.
a blurred line. So can we make that where we're still staying in our regulations, but still allowing it without anyone breaking a rule?
Part of it is too, like Lynn had said, Aramark blocks that as well, selling any
in a
products
contract. It's
in the contract, in the Aramark
You can't
contract,
even
anything
outside
during the day.
Before-
You
Or
can't sell
outside
anything that
normal school
conflicts
day?
with what they have during the school
Outside
day.
of the normal school day?
No, during
During
school.
school day.
Yeah,
During
that's what I mean,
school.
but I mean, like, other events, I don't, because it's hard to like, just reading this, distinguish between the two.
Why don't I add a line saying that,
After school
This is-
after
activities.
school, I'll write an
Summer
extra,
field day today, I had to go lemonade truck. It's delicious. All day.
After
But,
one every summer.
I mean, you know,
And my other question too is, why are we limiting the use of cash prizes or incentives in the fundraising activity? Because these color runs are bringing in some money.
but that's the PTA, that's not the school. And
Yeah,
that's the difference.
that's the difference.
Just so I'm
PTA.
sure.
Yeah.
PTA does its own thing,
Yeah, PTA and
and that's
PTOs,
separate from the school.
correct.
The school itself should not be in the business of
Fundraising.
fundraising like that,
Right.
and
Yeah.
bringing in money.
It does
Per
say
se.
student
Fundraising activities, so like,
A
I'm
student,
confused. I didn't know.
Do you need to put in distinguishing between the school department and the PTA? The PTO?
supports fundraising.
Because I think, I mean, all of us in general can sometimes get confused by this.
So we don't want to limit what the PTO
Right.
do. Because they're
Okay.
very
So is it
helpful
like,
to our schools.
so what I'm learning is just two different guidelines with like kids trying to, does that include field trips? If they're trying to like high school level, the drama club wants to raise money to go on that, is that the same, is that under this? And now would they be limited to how much money they can raise and what they can sell?
Good point. why don't I pull this
Yeah.
and look at it again
Yeah.
and see if I can, better define it. I think you're right.
Because sometimes too, the school itself, like the principal will hold a fundraiser for this school. And we've done that a few times at, Tollgate selling calendars or Tollgate calendars or whatever.
Yes,
To
they do
get
that
money.
in different programs still. They do
Yeah,
that.
so you need
Yeah,
to,
there's no differentiation on here between PTAs and PTOs and their activities
Overlap.
that- that
Yeah.
benefit students.
we
Right,
don't,
which you don't want to do that anymore.
and before we leave this, I have a question about Venmo. Because, I don't accept Venmo for my stuff, but some people, I've noticed some organizations, so Brandon, do we have, I know we have a district policy about bookkeeping and the financial stuff. What's anything going on with Venmo? Is Venmo allowed? Is there a
I don't
policy?
think we have anything in policy yet. We just got equipment to start using Square at the CTC at Tides restaurant, which we haven't fully set up yet, but we will need to set up some sort
That
of
would be
policy.
very
around that
helpful
once.
to me.
But the grace between Venmo and them, like, get money to, Venmo will take money, especially when it's fundraising.
What do you mean by that?
Like, so Square will take a percentage of whatever you bring in,
Right,
Venmo will not.
yeah.
Okay.
Venmo's a lot harder to control because there's no like back end to it where it's just like individual users, whereas like Square has full reporting on the backside so we can see all the
You
transactions.
can report from that.
Yeah,
Realize in my
Venmo
notes, that's how I use my campaign. You can do a full
Oh,
report,
yeah.
but if you use it solely for just that purpose, it, just has to be hooked to my phone number.
Okay. I don't see why we couldn't use that. Not as necessarily
I'm not
as a school
advocating
district, I'm
for it.
saying for like a PTO. or-
Why is
No.
Venmo bad? You're shaking your head no.
I'm not advocating.
I'm just saying,
different
it-
experience with it.
without getting into details,
That's fine.
certain organizations don't use it correctly.
Uh,
And there's been incidents, like,
Yeah, I would absolutely.
so that's why I think Square is a little more transparent, even though they charge a fee. Venmo, just based on past experiences and past events from other
It's like an
organizations.
embezzlement.
And I
Yes.
take cash or
Oh,
checks
yeah.
made
There's no way
payable
there.
to Tollgate High
Yeah,
School
there's no way to track it.
Yes.
for my
There's a
drama
report,
stuff.
though.
There is
I
a
mean, maybe you
report.
obviously know something I don't know, but
No, I
There's a
mean,
report,
but you
though.
you could skew that report
Yes.
easily.
Okay,
You could
Huh.
skew that.
so
Yeah.
to keep us moving along.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, I thought, but
I'm
the
gonna-
question always comes up to me, can I pay in Venmo? And I'm like, no, check made out to Tollgate High School or cash.
I had
Okay.
The old-fashioned way.
I'm gonna pull this one, and if by any chance I can get it, I will, otherwise we'll put it on
To Square.
the August or
It
September
should, you should be able
agenda.
to use it.
because almost everybody has capital.
All right, grouping for instruction.
Yes.
This one, again, we didn't have very much in there. And so really just said that we need to look at the best interests and needs of students, their educational level, availability of space, educational climate for learning, and students' best chance for success. Rather than say they have to be this level, this and that, which you don't want to do. You want to make it general and say it's okay, but you want to take these factors into consideration when you are grouping for instruction. You don't want the honeybees and like in the olden days, you don't want to group that way anymore, and you want to take these different considerations. You want to take these different things into consideration when you are grouping for instruction, and to also keep what we already had in this policy, that it's reviewed frequently, that it's flexible, that you're using more than one measure of ability, and it does not reflect culture, economic, or racial background. Yes.
Dr. Cecil, I have a question on number 5. How does that fit with our MLL students that may be receiving multiple periods of service based on their WIDA levels?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
So the student groupings, number 5, it says not reflect reasons of culture, economic, or racial background. So I guess I'm worried about, maybe I'm overthinking it, but if I had a group of 5 Spanish-speaking students at a level 2 that I had grouped together because they received MLL support, either in a push-in model or a pull-out model, that's, I guess, the only concern I have about that someone could look and say those students share a similar racial background, culture, etc.
Well, but the other argument is it's the student's best chance for success.
I agree. I
And I think if you look at any other group, you have a whole group of white children. You know, I mean, I think, I think you are overthinking it.
Yes.
But I appreciate you bringing it up, but I really think you're overthinking that one.
All right.
And also the needs of the students
And
and
you're looking
available
at the needs of the
programs.
students. I don't think that that's gonna come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
How about number 2? Because we always teach students to where they are and differentiate to bring them, close the gap. So we wouldn't be choosing a classroom. We want heterogeneous classrooms.
That's under 3.
Under,
Two.
no, there's 2 of them.
There's
Three
2
over
sets
here.
of numbers under the second set of
Oh,
number.
yeah, that one,
number.
but this one up the top, where it says grouping students with individual schools within for instructional purpose shall be based solely on, and then it says the educational level. So that makes me think you've got to put all the top kids in one room like we used to do.
I can take that out.
Okay.
Or
Or-
educational level, or we're just thinking grade level?
I'm thinking
First
grade
grade,
level.
second grade, that's what I was thinking.
What if you have mixed classes? You know, like there's
I mean, you're not gonna put a
You could
third
do-
grader in with a second grader.
Then that's covered somewhere else on there. Okay.
On number 3, for the second part, student grouping should, I think instead of using heterogeneous and homogeneous, I think more 2024 terminology like inclusive and diverse would be better than saying heterogeneous and homogeneous.
What does everybody else think of that?
I agree with that.
That's true. That heterogeneous and
No, it says
homogeneous
Yeah,
is 20 years old as the
no,
last time.
and you do
we
get a
talked.
little bit of a twinge when you say it out loud.
Be within an inclusive classroom.
Inclusive and diverse.
Inclusive classroom group rather, oh no,
You don't need the
yeah.
the rather part.
Yeah, just take out this rest. Okay. Anything else? All right. Textbook selection and adoption. Committee will officially adopt textbooks and programs upon the recommendation of the superintendent, either print or electronic media. Responsibility for the review and selection will rest with the textbook and curriculum committees as appointed by the director of curriculum. Membership shall include representation by teachers who will use the text, administrators, and other staff members as found desirable. Students and parents may be asked to serve. Additionally, basic textbook and textbook programs will be chosen to advance educational objectives. contribute towards continuity and articulation of the Warwick curriculum, establish general framework for a particular course or program. Although many points may be examined, the school committee directs the staff to be particularly mindful of the needs of all learners, being culturally responsive, gender roles depicted in the materials should lead to student and teacher beyond the textbook into a wide variety of other materials and educational experiences. And it goes on, and should be vetted and approved by either Rhode Island Department of Education or other nationally accepted vetting body such as PD Ed reports. Superintendent shall augment textbooks with reference books. That's it. Pretty straightforward.
We also have digital components to our textbooks.
So it says electronic.
Yeah,
textbooks.
that's set up.
How often are students and parents actually asked to serve?
It depends on the subject and the grade level. And whoever's leading the adoption. So I haven't been involved in it in the last several years, so I don't know who has been involved.
They do a lot of pilot studies, so students they do like interact with the new text as a pilot. So
When I used to do it, I would always have a parent there to review the materials and have their input. All right, promotion and retention of students. This one, before you go on, rather than start, we had a regulation that said, you had to have this point average and that to do this, to do that.
Yeah.
Our actual policy, if you see, had very, very little in it. It just said, the Warwick School Committee recognizes a standard of achievement and as a prerequisite for promotion, and any student who hasn't attained the level of achievement to progress for the next grade shall be considered for retention, and the superintendent shall establish through regulation the criteria for promotion of students. So that's where regulation comes in. Rather than start to write a policy on the criteria, which is going to change based on RIDE, based on curriculum, based on standards. What I did with this policy was to make it very general and say, evaluating student achievement, teacher will use available information, using various measures, and the expectation is that students are going to progress from grade to grade. Exceptions may be made in the judgment of professional staff if it's in the best interest of the student. And then at the very end, it says the final decision will rest with the building principal. But it does say that parents are consulted and everybody else will be involved in it, but that final decision doesn't say it can only be done once in this grade. That all comes with the regulation or the procedures. That's for the curriculum and the directors of elementary and secondary to sit down and work out and work with teachers, and others to come to agreement as this is what it should be for now, because this is what RIDE says has to be, this is what our standards say you have to have, and blah, blah. So rather than put that in this policy is just stating there's an expectation that kids will promote, and there will be times when a child will not. And in that case, you will make sure that you use multiple measures, that parents will be consulted, teachers will be consulted, and in the end, if there's any, discussion or any controversy around it, the principal has the final word.
One other thing, when we discuss retention, we always look at the absenteeism rate.
Hmm,
I think that should be somewhere in there.
okay.
I mean, how often does it actually happen?
Very, very little, but it does, we have a few cases right now that we're meeting on.
Yeah, I can't ever see
Right.
how it,
So a
how it
handful,
works.
A handful.
Because honestly, if they're not showing up and they're not doing it now, or if they're not capable of doing it, is keeping them back, I don't understand how that's helping a student at all, but.
Just say
That's
attendance
another-
rather than
Yeah, attendance, yeah,
absenteeism.
attendance. Sometimes it's based on like they're very sickly that year
Mhm.
or they have
Right.
a death.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's done.
So, but you're
So it's a
right, if
rare
they have a
thing.
pattern, then you're
Yeah.
not gonna.
Anything
It's
else?
built a lot of frustration.
See, wasn't so bad. Wasn't so bad. Student attendance. This is one that, we brought to the attendance committee. There's been, Patty has been chairing an attendance committee all year to look at absenteeism and things to do. So I brought the student attendance policy, which had actually been updated, in January of '23, so it'd been just a year ago, where I sat down with Mike, and looked at the whole thing. So we went through it again, and there was just minor changes to it. I'd have to look on this, they were very minor. On page, 1 of 5 at the very bottom, all absences, excused or unexcused, shall be recorded on student's record and will be considered towards rides chronic absenteeism. On page 3 of 5, we're striking under number 7, we're striking some language and we'll just say family vacations. We started to say if it's absolutely necessary and blah, blah. We just took that all out and just said family vacations during
It's a
school time will
vacation.
be counted as unexcused absences.
Yes,
Boom.
please.
And that came up in the second place because it was once under elementary and once under high school. So, I think we found it in 2 places. And that was it. That was the only changes that we made.
So on page 1, down at the bottom, the second where it says for purposes, the second line of for purposes of this policy, chronic shall be defined as more than 5 school days within a quarter trimester. So now the commissioner describes it as 10% of 180 days,
Yeah,
10% of the school year.
So chronic shall be defined as 10%.
Of the entire school year.
Yeah.
So you could be out 18 times per
Right.
semester and then
Have
never
your-
again for the rest of the year. Got it. Wow.
As
Just to be in line with.
Yeah. 10% of the,
180
180 days.
180 days.
school year.
you could even put in there per ride or something like that.
Yeah, for ride regulations.
Or
couldn't you just put- per ride regulations and not specify and put the link, so if it does change again next year, you wouldn't have to go back and adjust it again?
Just,
Well, you
maybe
might
so
want
it's-
it in there just so you can see
so it's an easy
what it
visual
is, yeah.
for somebody to look at, I would think.
I don't think they'll change that anytime soon.
We just have to update every time if they did change.
Why do we define the difference between excessive and chronic? What's the difference?
Probably the
Ex-
same.
Excessive was more than 5 days and chronic was,
It's the same
Yeah, it's the
definition.
same.
It is the
I think
same
you can just get
definition.
rid of the line above it, then.
Unless we
Choose excessive or chronic.
No, no,
Unless
no.
we've used
No, no, no,
excessive
it
in
was
certain
different.
places.
excessive was within the same quarter and chronic was, this more than 5 days for more than 1 quarter. So it was
Oh, yeah.
like 5 days every quarter.
Okay,
That's chronic. Excessive was 5 days
In a
in,
quarter.
in a quarter. Chronic is 5 days every quarter.
But do we
Are
need,
we measuring anything by that anymore? I don't think so.
well, and do we need it anymore? Because now RIDE is saying 10% of 180
Right,
days, so we don't need it.
It comes
Based
as
on
part of our
trimester.
report card.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we want to leave that?
If it's part of the report card, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it
but
the
it's not
same-
part of RIDE
so
regulations.
Are there schools that are on a trimester?
So elementary.
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 And it's, okay, because it says 5 days per quarter or trimester, quarter's 20
Yeah.
days.
Yeah,
It's
elementary.
But-
That's how it works.
So the
Yeah.
20 is over the 18,
Okay, yeah.
so.
I don't understand number 2 under elementary and secondary. Parents are required to submit a written excuse for each period of absence or late arrival to school. Isn't that, I mean, if you're doing that, you're going for an excused absence. If it's unexcused, parents aren't gonna do that. I feel like there's like another phrase that needs to be added to that, or it needs to be moved somewhere more towards the excuse part. I'm looking at page 2.
I understand what you're looking at. I don't understand what your point is.
So if you're saying parents are required to submit a written excuse, if it's unexcused, a parent is not going to send in, they're just going to send their child late.
The reason you want to do that is an absence is going to be an absence. A tardy is going to be a tardy for RIDE's purposes. For purposes of participating or being eligible for an honor society, for purposes of being eligible for something else, the district is going to look at excused versus unexcused. So it's in your best interest to write a note so that it's logged as unexcused, logged as excused.
That's what I mean, like, I feel like that could be clear, like, if you put something like saying for an excused absence, written documentation must be provided, because you're kind of talking about that here, right? When you're saying you need a note for excused absence by a physician or a dentist. I don't know, just to me, that seems confusing.
Yeah, we know what it means because we've lived it.
But I don't think a parent reading that is gonna look and understand that.
I still honestly don't see, if I see parents are required to submit a written excuse for each absence.
And then what happens if they
So
don't?
what happens if I don't?
Yeah, what's the consequence if they don't?
Then it's gonna be an unexcused absence.
Well, that's why it needs to,
It needs to say
it
then,
needs to say that.
Say if
Yeah.
somebody is late, though, and they're going to the prom. If they don't have something written, they're not going to the prom.
yeah, we just need to add a little to qualify as an excused absence.
Or the student.
Some schools will
Right.
not let the children
Yeah.
participate if
In
they do
activities.
not have it.
Or like, some of the sports teams or whatever. Like, that's why kids have to be in school on the day of a game, or, you know.
So can't we just add at the end, in order to qualify as an excused absence?
Or the student will receive an unexcused absence.
Oh, well, either way, negative or positive, one way or the other. And honestly, number one, parent or guardian must call school to notify that the student is absent. Well, what happens if they don't? The secretary calls the house. Because none of our kids ever call. Only one, maybe one, that emails.
And then now once they turn 18, they sign themselves out too.
That's great.
Okay, anything else? All right, moving us along. Entrance age. I made this exactly the way it is. Every child is attained the way within 5 years. Shouldn't be any problem with that.
Don't we sometimes make exceptions for this though? Never?
The only exception is if they go to an accredited private kindergarten.
Right, just because I knew a kid that did that.
Yeah,
Does that need to be part of that?
yeah, so then that child wouldn't be 6 years old when he enters first grade by September 1st. So if he went to a private accredited kindergarten, and then he goes back to his home school,
This is, right,
he'll be entering before 6 years old. He'll start first grade at 5 years old. Like, let's say his birthday's in November.
Mhm.
So he went to a accredited kindergarten when he was 4 years and 11 months. Now he's going to first grade, he's 5 years and 11 months. So if they stay in our system, this is the right policy, but once they leave, come back.
Do you want me to add something about unless they've attended an accredited
Well, it
kindergarten?
used to say it, it's crossed out.
Or is there an or some kind of exception?
Third paragraph down, last line, children shall be eligible to attend first grade only upon completion of a state recognized or accredited kindergarten program. Just leave it in,
Yeah, leave it.
We just did that last part.
That last sentence.
that last sentence, yeah, we just leave it in.
I'll just put it at the end.
They don't have to provide a birth certificate anymore.
In registration, they do. This is-
Well, we've removed that as well. Birth certificates or their equivalent must be presented as proof of age.
Where are you?
Right underneath that second, that one we just,
Okay,
Yeah, that
Going
should
up, birth
probably-
certificates.
That should probably stay.
yeah. And the sentence after that should probably stay then. Children will be accepted in kindergarten or first grade by transfer from an accredited school if they meet the age requirements. We should probably leave all that in.
okay.
But in my scenario, they did not meet the age requirement because they went to that private kindergarten.
But I believe that was,
So maybe take out in that last one, maybe take out they meet the age requirement for entrance. They don't need that. They just need to come from an accredited school. Correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
will be accepted by transfer from any accredited school, period.
This really should mean that we never start school before September 1st to just be in line with this because August is just too early.
I concur, Teresa. I concur.
My birthday is that last week and
Is it really?
nothing is worse than coming in and starting school on your birthday.
Student conduct.
This one I sent out to, the principals, I sent it out to the department chairs, I sent it out to the, building reps, to get feedback on it. I sent it out to let Patty and Bill, everybody take a look at it. And, whatever feedback was given was incorporated into this, and everybody was okay with it, the way it reads.
Sorry.
Everybody okay with this?
Do you have to differentiate or expressly talk about school hours? Because it says this expectation applies to students when the student is on school property. What about if it's at night? Like on a basketball court or a playground or something like that?
It's in there someplace. It says on or off school property. This expectation applies to students when the student is on school property, traveling to school or from school, traveling to and from the bus stop, in attendance at any school-sponsored activity or off school property.
Want to add before or after school hours?
But do we want it to apply to before or after school hours, I think is the question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's important. If you think back, we had the kids making TikTok videos in the bathroom. The parents were trying to argue that it was before school hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, and the amount of things that happen after school hours and yet still on school property are probably.
At the bus stop.
I just added before or after school hours.
Did you say
Anyway,
school property in general?
It says that on or off school property.
Alright.
Okay.
And it's got bus stop and buses and everything else on here because,
Well, and then we have the separate one of
For
conduct
buses.
on school buses.
Isn't there like a counter argument though, where like if it's before school hours and say two kids get in a fight on the way to a school bus stop, are we responsible for that?
Yeah.
We are responsible for that.
Especially if it carries into
To a
the
school
school
bus.
day and disrupts the learning environment from the start of the school day.
Well, we're responsible as soon as they leave their house, if they go into
Yep.
a school bus stop, they're
Okay.
our responsibility.
Yep. And so
Not really.
the student conduct on school buses, again, the expectation, is these established standards for classroom behavior, and the principal can suspend or revoke riding privileges, for students who have disciplinary problems on the bus. Of course, it does not apply to students with an IEP, or 504.
well, it does.
Well, that should be referred to their
To the team.
respective team
Mhm.
for
Correct.
file review prior to any loss of transportation. And if a privilege is suspended, parents are responsible for seeing that the student gets to and from school safely, and the bus driver is responsible for maintaining orderly behavior of students on buses, and shall report misconduct to the principal and provide a copy of the report to the transportation
That was
department.
in there because they're lax on that.
how can we cross off all the examples?
That doesn't occur that way. They provide the conduct referral right to transportation, then transportation sends it over to us. I just feel like for us, there's no way we could talk to bus drivers in the morning when they're dropping stuff off. And I rather have the written documentation prior to addressing anything so that the story doesn't change.
Absolutely.
Could that be something rewritten to shall report misconduct to the transportation department and just take out school principal because it goes then to transportation, then to the school administrator?
So you don't want to be given a report?
Oh, he wants you to
I'd rather
reverse.
get it through transportation. That way there's only one report circulating. It's the same information we've all heard.
And
That's
then
just my take on it because I could see that creating a backup in the morning. I can't leave my morning post to go talk to a bus driver, and I don't want them outside beeping, waiting for me to come over or something.
As long as it happens, as long as it gets from transportation to the principal,
Yeah.
because
It does.
there have been times some of our kids have been written up and we never saw that paper and we didn't know. And other times, they're so difficult on the bus, we have to actually ride with them. So special ed bus, it happens. We had 4 adults had to ride for one student because they were so unsafe on
If
the
we're writing
bus.
that policy, then should we definitely make sure that that's in our contract with first student? We're already in the contract, right?
We're
Making
still,
them.
Well, they do the write-ups, they do
But
the
it's- but it's
reports.
part of- But we already say like as yours, like.
Yeah.
That's part of our contract stuff. Or it's.
It should be, that should be
Should be.
part of their job description then, to report misconduct.
Okay,
Well, the gap comes when it goes to transportation and then this transportation building does not then forward it to the principal. That's when we
So
lose it.
that's,
Like they send it in, they'll send in the report from first student and then we don't see it. I mean, we
anything
in the
else on that
classroom, we
one?
need to see it.
Doesn't mean make it part of the contract for students to honest teacher.
All
it's,
right,
Tracy's saying though that
It's not for students.
first student is
They're
doing
doing
what
it.
they're supposed to do, but our transportation department isn't sending it to the
Oh.
building.
Yeah, and not all the time, just sometimes, yeah. Just on occasion, that does
On
happen. It gets
occasion.
lost in the shuffle.
all right. JFCI, which is alcohol use by students and drug abuse by students.
Oh, but why are we back to the bus though? How come we crossed off all the examples of
Oh, because
bad behavior?
Because you start to get into examples, there's a million of them, and people could argue one way or another.
That
That's
my
not on
student
the
didn't,
list.
my child
It's
didn't
not
do
on the
this, but they
list.
did,
It's not
yeah.
on the list
Yeah.
and all that stuff, so
Hey.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was a
better
fine list though.
off- I think you're better off.
There's been
Like-
other
Don't all
districts I've been in, and they got, and we would list
Yeah.
them, and they go, well, it's not on the list, so you can't suspend. So it gives us
I
more
do enjoy
flexibility
Take a
to
look at
actually
where out of the
discipline unbiasedly, but like.
The list is nice though.
Yeah.
It's very illustrative.
So we're adding some language to
My
the
day.
alcohol and drug abuse, saying that we don't permit it. And
Tobacco go in this one too?
Is vaping
Yes.
on
no,
here?
we have a separate one on tobacco. We have a separate one on tobacco. And, because we have that with the vaping.
Yeah.
So then this one also adds disciplinary action, what may include but not limited to. And student assistance will be made available for students at the secondary level. They have drug abuse or alcohol problems.
Do we need to specifically put vaping in here, or is that covered under?
There's another
She
policy.
said there's another policy.
We have another policy on vaping.
And why don't we want to combine those
I
two
know, I
policies?
know.
I'd have to go
Probably,
back
'cause
and
I would
look
think
at
back
it
in the
because this
day-
is alcohol
did it.
and drugs. And
Mhm.
smoking, I think is, I mean, we could. I'd have to go back
A
and.
lot of the vaping that's going
I
on.
mean,
Yes.
illegal is illegal.
Medicinal
And the
products.
vaping
But it,
can be marijuana too.
Yes.
Yeah, they use
99% of the time,
Yes.
it's marijuana.
Well, smoking would have been legal years ago, right? Cigarettes in high school.
It wasn't
Probably
le-
separate.
Wasn't
It was
allowed.
kind of, well, when I,
We had a smoking
40
area.
40 years ago, I graduated from Union High School. Children smoked everywhere, outside, in the.
I'll take a look
whatever.
at it and
The
see if it
teachers
makes
smoked and the
sense
teachers.
To
were-
combine the two.
If it doesn't, we'll leave it. If it does, I'll combine it and move it forward.
On the rare occasion I rode the bus to school,
We're
had a
gonna
contact high
go
by
ahead
the
and
time I
move
got
on
to the building.
and try and get through these.
I have to go to a
student-
concert at Pilgrim, so I'll see you.
Enjoy.
Have a good time. Bye, Liz.
This one, the student behavior on school grounds.
We just talk about, Didn't we just talk about that in the other? This is just,
This is just when you arrive at
all
school.
right.
And-
One left and I had a question.
And the reason I brought this up is that in the handbook, it's written exactly the way it's written here, in the student code of conduct. They've copied this policy directly. And so I wanted to be sure that that's the way we wanted it. And I sent it to Patty, I sent it to Bill, sent it out to the principals. Adam wanted something specific for middle school, so he gave me this language for middle school. So I added that in.
The problem is this is not accurate. I'm in an elementary school where we open the doors and the school buses drop off at 8:45 and we don't open until 9:05. So they're 20 minutes early, dropping off students, busloads of them,
And then
20 minutes prior to the start of school, not 10.
in addition, we also have those programs now before and after school where the kids stay. I don't know if that needs to be noted.
Mm. You know
That's
what, I think you're right, and I think this one's a good one
To
to pull
revisit.
and put into Patty.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
Lisa's
feel
folder.
like even the booklets say 20 minutes.
Yes.
And then down at the bottom, it says 15 minutes for this one over here, and school doors open 20
I
minutes. But
honestly felt
yeah.
that this one needed something, and
Yeah.
Patty just couldn't think of what it needed.
Well, Patty
at
was
the
the
time.
principal at our school, and we opened the doors 20 minutes
and-
prior, so,
But I honestly did think it needed something, but I didn't know.
yeah, 10 minutes is
So
long.
I'll put it back in their folder.
Yeah.
and
I would
wait for
prefer 10
Patty for
minutes,
next
but
year.
those big buses are unloading 20
I
minutes
agree with
prior.
I agree with
You could never get 300 kids into a school in 10 minutes.
I
The
agree.
school day would
You know,
start,
if, uh,
and it would be
parents
PE time.
coming, dropping their kids off in the yard like at 8:05, and
Yeah.
there's no adult supervision
Yeah.
till 8:25.
Well, that we
I
don't
don't
typically
know.
allow. We make the parents sit back in the car
Exactly.
because we're there,
The
but
buses.
there's buses
There's a
unloading 20
wide
minutes
range
prior,
of
and that's,
times
Yeah.
of buses.
Our
Some
rule
are
is 20
super
minutes.
early,
I'm gonna
some
keep us
are
moving 'cause
really almost
Yep.
After this
before that.
policy, we've got the ones that are reviewed, and
That's
there's
part
quite
of
a few of
the
those. and I
problem,
wanna
and on any
get us out
given
as
day,
quickly as possible.
many bus routes are
So
combined.
JFCN,
Announcements.
which is prohibition
And
against
then at the end of
bullying,
the day,
we added
bus,
hazing.
whatever is combining,
Okay.
So
whatever.
throughout this policy,
Then,
really the
because
only
it's the
thing
high
that was
school, and that
added
might affect
was hazing,
the end of
and then Andrew
end
asked
times,
for
and then they have to go pick up
a
middle school,
sentence
elementary,
on
so then there's like a
page
domino
2 of
effect.
8. any suspected bullying or hazing that involves a protected class as set forth above should be referred as applicable to Title IX, Title VI, or anti-harassment policies for further consideration.
Mhm.
Otherwise, all the rest of this stays the same, put in the definition of hazing. And that was it. It was just really adding hazing to the mix. And that other bit of language that he asked to have added in, and that was it. So it really should not be, we're not gonna rewrite this policy tonight, but, I think that there may be some new language coming down the pipe, as Lynn alluded to, that might need to be addressed next year. But for right now, it's current as is, but we just needed to add hazing. And that's why we were able to get rid of that policy on hazing separate from this. It was like, no, let's just add hazing to this and be done with it. All right. I'm gonna open this folder with the policies that were reviewed that don't need any changes. And I'm gonna go through these very quickly. Graduation requirements. All students who meet graduation requirements will be issued a diploma. Don't need to change anything with that. Oops, I have to share that. All students who meet graduation requirements will get a diploma. No need to change that. Individuals with disabilities under section 504. Andrew reviewed it and said it's still current. I'm looking to see when was the last time we updated it. 2022, still current. Andrew looked at it, said it was fine. So we're good with that one. Transgender, that again was a new one. That's maybe a year old at best. So I wrote that one when we had to write that one. That was in, I'm older than I thought, 2018. But Andrew
Time
reviewed it.
flies.
Time flies.
Yeah.
But it's still current and it's okay.
Surprised.
School admissions, students will be admitted who've reached the appropriate school age for show proof of evidence of
Do we need
required.
that? If we just did it in the other policy?
So we probably could eliminate it. I could put it on the list for elimination. Really don't need.
Yeah, I mean, we've got entrance age, JEB, which we just did.
Okay, I'll put it on the elimination.
Okay.
It's really not needed, you're right. Admission of inter-district transfer students.
Also included in the other one, isn't it?
No, this is when the school cannot provide appropriate for child of school age in the areas of special education, that's when they will send them out. So that's what
Okay,
that's talking about. And so that's why we need to keep that.
Yes.
And the non-resident students, that we charge a tuition,
Mhm.
and that just says that we'll do that. The care of school property was updated in 2019, and after looking at it, it just seems like it's fine. It addressed, defacing school property and, feeling pride in the community, just seemed like it was fine the way it was. Didn't seem like it needed anything new. And there's our smoking and vaping by students.
It doesn't seem very long. It seems like we could just
Yeah, probably.
pop that
could
paragraph
pop that
right
too.
in.
So maybe that's what I'll do, is put JFCG for elimination and merge with
JFCH.
Good call. We'll do that. Dangerous weapons in school. Yep, I think we probably want to keep that one. And this goes along with the conduct of, on the bus, this is the conduct of walkers. Things that may just seem like
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. Electronic devices in schools.
Yes. When was that one updated?
That one was updated in 23,
Yeah,
so that's why I said it's fine, it was updated recently. Detention of students, I believe, this one was updated in 2014, but all it says is that you have to give 24-hour notice, unless parent gives permission, verbal permission to stay. Pretty straightforward.
Does anybody give detentions in elementary school anymore? I feel like
It's in
that's a
some
no.
it's in
go.
some handbooks, but it's not in others. So
And accommodating students with seizure, this one I think was again, one of the more current ones. I want to say I wrote that one, 2022. So it didn't need anything updated.
Okay.
So those will just, get the stamp that they were reviewed. So quite a bit.
Good.
So you are not meeting in July. No meeting date has been No meeting date has been scheduled for August. Do you want to put a date for the first Tuesday in August? And then when this committee meets, you'll come up with your calendar for the new year when you meet then?
Sure. Does this same day and time work for everyone? And will it work in
Yeah.
August when they're?
I have it on my calendar already for 4:30.
First Tuesday in August?
Got into my pool floating time, but I think
Unless-
if it's beach weather,
Unless
maybe
if it's
not.
August, if you could do it earlier, we could do it earlier in the
Early in the
day.
day?
Yeah.
The administration gets out earlier in the summertime too, so
Yes.
it's kind
Yeah.
of convenient for
Yeah.
administration.
That's fine, whatever, still on the same job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You
I
could
mean, unless
do
you wanna do it morning, I can start before my day.
Yeah, morning,
Morning.
morning on August 6th might
I'd
work.
rather do the morning.
10 a.m.,
What time, 9?
9?
Anytime in the morning.
10?
I can't send
What
out the
time?
invite because my account's gonna go away, and so will your
Who's gonna
invite.
be in charge?
Kristen Murray's gonna take over. So she'll be, I think, be attending these meetings, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe, Paul, you could send out the
Sure.
invite. I'll share the, contact list.
Yep.
So you have.
So
the
that's
contact
August
details.
6th at 10 a.m.?
August 6th at 10.
No,
10 a.m.
this
10
committee
a.m. on
get put
August.
together.
What day is it?
Tuesday.
August 6th at 10 a.m.?
Yep. That's
Does
the,
that work for all?
that's the first
It
Tuesday.
was
What-
just.
did you say? 10?
Because prior to that, the committee, I mean, they've always had it, but it never met.
Kristen Meyer.
Well,
No, and then they sort of regrouped it all. like,
He does ESY.
I came aboard and saw that you all were meeting.
A lot of stuff, a lot of balls in the air, so I was like, nah, I think I'll pass on that.
And I was still responsible for the manual.
And to do ESY and DEI and.
I started to attend. And I came.
When was that?
well, I was back on a policy committee back in the early 2000s.
I was thinking it was-
Lucille Modacosta started it.
Oh, is that how far back?
I was on that, that was like 2004, maybe 2003 or something. like that.
Oh, 20 years ago?
I've been,
That's when Lucille?
yeah, Lucille,
We have
Have I been on this that long?
So we have public comment?
what?
I must have been on this almost that
Meeting
long as
adjourned
well,
at
I feel like.
5:43.
I was on some committee with Lucille.
Yep, she started